Hello and welcome to another SkaredCast Battle Report. Today I'm playing Jeff and he's brought his tournament White Scars to battle against the Eldar and Dark Eldar forces. We're playing on this table. Cool Fat Mat by Frontline Gaming. Let's get this bloodbath started. Onto the armies. Okay, so 1,500 points of White Scars with a Knight ally. Jeff, take it away.
We got Con, of course. Command Squad, 5 Grav. Grav, Kami Grav, 3-man. Grav, Kami Grav, 3-man. Melta, Kami Melta, 3-man. Melta, Kami Melta, 3-man. Sense, Grav, Omniscope, Pod, and Librarian.
And a Knight. Okay, and then we have 1,500 points of Eldar, Dark Eldar. So we have an Eldar CAD, we've got a Jet Seer with a unit of Jet Bikes and a unit of Die Avengers and a Wave Serpent. We have the Wraith Knight, a unit of Warp Spiders, 2 separate War Walkers. And then for a Dark Eldar Allied detachment, we have a Succubus, 4 Incubi, we haven't seen those in a while, in a Raider. Troops, we have 2 units of Cavalite Warriors, 1 in a Raider, 1 in a Venom, and 5 Scourge with Heat Lancers. Okay, let's move on to the mission and deployment. Okay, and the mission is 5 objectives. There's one in the center of the board, then 1 was put here, 1 is behind the Knight back there in the White Scar deployment zone, 1 was up here in the Cathedral, and 1 is back here next to the Manufactorum. So, Khan and all his bikes decided to outflank, deploying a Knight with a drop pod with Centurions coming in turn 1. The White Scars have first turn, and it's quite literally a last turn objective grab for the objectives. So, the Eldar have deployed the Warp Spiders and 2 separate War Walkers to try and survive turn 1. It is Knight fight, as my Warlord Trader's Knight attacker, and we're moving on to turn 1 with a drop pod with Centurions coming in. The rest of the armies in reserve. This is going to escalate either very well or very badly for one of the 2 armies. White Scars turn 1. Skari's Gaze has gone off, allowing them to re-roll reserves, but the Librarian did take a wound from a Perils of the Warp. And then the Centurions opened up 6 Grav hits against my Warwalker, and I passed 5 invulnerable saves. And then the Storm Bolter on the drop pod finally took the last hull point off the poor Walker. In the Omniscope forced the Spiders to jump, while this Warwalker was unscathed, and the Knight has moved forward. So we're moving on to Dark Eldar turn 1. Marked for death, we have a drop pod. I have to kill that pod. And they have gotten first strike by killing the Warwalker that was marked for death. Okay, let's see what we can do this turn. Okay, Dark Eldar turn 1. The Warp Spiders did not move up far enough with their battle focus to touch them with their guns, so they have decided to kind of move back, and then they're going to Eldar Jetpack move. And by Eldar Jetpack, they're just going to move back a bit. And then we've got this Warwalker that was stunned thanks to the Knight shooting through ruins. And the drop pod passed the 1 hull point cover save it had to make. Other than that, we're moving on to reserves for the White Scars. And with Skari's Gaze, he's re-rolling reserves. So, let's see what will happen with a bunch of bikes outflanking or not outflanking, depending on what he wants to achieve. Okay, so White Scars turn 2, we had 3 bike units show up, both Grav biker units and the Meltagun unit. He tried to keep as much off as he could, but Skari's Gaze stabbed him in the back. The Centurions have moved back a little bit, and the Knight started everything off with a pot shot at the War Walker. Both blasts scattered and landed on some bikers. So he did kill the War Walker, but also succeeded in killing 3 Grav bikers with his own Knight. That meant that the Warp Spiders, once targeted, were able to jump back out of line of sight, so they are safe once again. And these Melta bikers have turbo boosted up here after they were here, stopping the Warp Spiders from getting really close to that ledge. So we're moving on to Dark Eldar turn 2, and we have reserves to make, which means we're rolling for reserves. And Khan and another melt unit have still not arrived onto the table. So, and Skari's gaze has not gone off, so he can't re-roll his reserves for next turn. Okay, so let's start with the Farseer with his jetbike units. I believe that's cocked. Yeah, that's cocked. And you can't really see that, so I'm going to roll this dice. Okay, so the Farseer and his units, they arrive. We have a deep striking unit of Cabalite warriors. They arrive. We have the Venom arriving with Cabalite warriors. They do not arrive. We have the Succubus with her Incubi. They do not arrive. The Dire Avengers, they arrive. The Wraith Knight arrives, and the Scourge arrive. So, moving on to the turn of the century. Okay, so Eldar, Dark Eldar, turn 2. Had a deep striking raider try and snipe out the librarian that's back there to no effect. And then I had a variety of shooting. The heat-lanced Scourge actually scattered wildly and put 1 wound on one of the Centurions. And then I was able to put 1 wound on another and kill one of the Centurions, but 2 of them are still left alive. They are dominated, though. And then we have the Farseer that came in, moved all the way at the back. The Wraith Knight has moved up this way, and the Warp Spiders completely wiped out a unit of Grav Bikers. Okay, so we're moving on to turn 3. No Skari's gaze means what rolls is what happens. Let's continue. Okay, top of turn 3, the White Scars. Disaster strikes as the Melter Bike unit charges into the Warp Spiders, losing 2 members to Overwatch, only to fail their hit and run and provide the Warp Spiders with a free move towards the Grav Sense, who failed their Dominate to move, so they were out of unit coherency, therefore unable to shoot this turn. The Melter Bikes came in from reserve, blasted that Raider into oblivion, killing 1 Cabalite warrior, but they are alive. The Knight has moved into more of a commanding position on the battlefield, its battle cannon blasting a hull point and shaking the Wave Serpent, while Khan and his command squad of Grav of Doom has come in and combined shooting of the drop pod and the Grav command squad killed 4 out of 5 Scourge, and 1 is left alive, and he is well. Okay, we're moving on to turn 3 for the Dark Kin, and we have 2 reserve rolls to make. We have the Succubus and her Incubi retinue. They still do not arrive, and the Venom that arrives with the Cabalite warriors. Okay, on to the next turn. Turn 3, lots of stuff happened this turn. Shriek killed 2 models out of the command squad, and then a Venom fire killed another 2 models together with the Warp Spiders. So there's 2 command squad bikes left and Khan. Thanks to Champion of Humanity, they are fearless. The Dire Avengers killed the 2 last Centurions that were left with rending shots, and these units of Cabalite warriors put 4 wounds on that 3-man unit, and he failed 3 out of the 4 saves. So they died, which is bad rolling, poor saves. And then here, the Wraith Knight rolled a 4 and failed to charge that lone biker, while the Heat Lance put 1 penetrating hit and killed the gun off of the drop pod, and then the snap shooting scatter laser succeeded in hitting twice and putting 2 hull points on the drop pod to kill it. 4. Okay, so the biker that survived the charge from the Wraith Knight has boosted all the way back in the backfield. The Knight turned around and shot the unit here, doing a lot of damage, but the Cabalite warriors went to ground. 2 have survived and they are falling back. So Khan got together with the Librarian over here, and they charged into the Warp Spiders. The Warp Spiders killed 2 more models in Overwatch, which was horrible. I got 5 Overwatch hits and killed both of the veterans. And then I lost 2 Warp Spiders, and the Exarch has 1 wound left, but they successfully hit and ran, and they're going to hunt the lone biker back there, while Khan failed his hit and ran, and then they had to move behind line of sight blocking terrain. So we're moving on to turn 5. Let's see how the cookie crumbles, because kill points are the thing, and so are the objectives. My my warlord is arriving. Not my warlord, my succubus with the incubi finally show up to a battle with pretty much everything else destroyed. Okay. On to the next turn. 4. Farseer didn't do anything in the psychic phase. I moved up. I'm challenging the knight to a duel. Let's see if he comes out and plays. The Scourge with the heat lance is coming up and wants to shoot the knight with his heat lance. And then this Venom here, fire into Khan. 3 wounds, 3 failed saves, dead Khan. That was horrible.
That was the roll.
That was the roll. It was just, that's it. Khan just failed 3 out of 3 saves and died. And then the Armor of Misery made the Librarian fall back. He's alive with 1 wound remaining. Okay, so other than that, it's pretty much over as the Warp Spiders killed that last biker in the back. So it's a Knight and a Librarian versus the world. Let's see what we can do. We might have a mega Knight battle in the middle just for fun. Stay tuned for turn 5.
We'll kill something.
Okay, turn 5. We had the Knight blow up that Venom and kill 4 guys inside, but it's turn 5, so they're fearless. He's just sitting there. This Raider took 2 hull points worth of damage, failing both cover saves. And then the Knight did charge into the Warp Spiders and murder them with stomps. And now he's consolidated back into cover. I'm just going to go charge him for fun, even though it's through cover. At this point, it doesn't really matter. We're just rolling dice. Or trying, because it's going to go through cover. The no grenades is going to be a pain in the neck. And then there's a Librarian who's still alive with his Hunter's Eye. He did fail his charge, rolling Snake Eyes. And other than that, let's see what happens. Let's see. This is going to be fun. Okay. Turn 5. Bikes boosted back here. The Knight charged in and got hit and survived with his invulnerable save, and then blew up the Knight, rolling some 6s with his Ghost Glaive. Now he's consolidated to take that objective, and I've dominated the Librarian, but he's still alive. I've pretty much held every objective. Okay, does it go on to turn 6? It does, technically. Okay, end of the game. The Librarian perils and kills himself. Okay, and that was the end of turn 6. Okay, good game. Make sure you stay tuned to the tactical corner. Tactics-wise, it was a cat and mouse game first couple of turns, and then it just went horribly wrong for Jeff's army. Real quick to the camera, any last comments?
Dice suck.
Yeah, they do. Dice are horrible sometimes. Thanks a lot for tuning in, patrons. Thanks a lot for supporting the channel, and stay tuned for next battle reports. After all, this is Skari, your grateful host, out. Hello and welcome to another Tactical Corner. So I played a 1500 point game against a very nasty tournament-winning White Scars army with Jeff, and he's gone to quite a few different tournaments, done very well, come to the Berry Bash. So make sure you check the link down below to check out his list. You had MSU bike units, melters, grabs, a command squad with the Khan, a drop pod with Centurion Devastators, and of course a Librarian with the Hunter's Eye, also supported by a Knight Paladin. So I decided to run a Eldar CAD with a Dark Eldar allied detachment, or not. Just a variety of different things, yeah, an Eldar CAD, and really just ran stuff that I had painted. So I decided to run Incubi, do some like weird things, and a Deep Striking unit, a Heat Lance Scourge, because I converted them up recently and I just wanted to use them. All in all, we're playing a mission that for the Path to Glory, so 5 Crusade objectives, and it was Hammer and Anvil deployment. Now, knowing that the Centurions with the Hunter's Eye were coming in from reserve, I did not want to sacrifice my Wraith Knight at the beginning of the game. So I deployed 3 different units that were going to be hard to kill. Now, with the deployment coming down, my Warp Spiders were able to jump back unscathed because the Centurions scattered towards the table, so a little bit further back than they hoped. And my one War Walker behind the Bastion almost survived all the damage. Now, the early game in this matchup was all about the opening gambit.
just getting ourselves into position to do as much damage as we could and get ourselves into a spot where the second turn onwards was going to be the main deciding factor of the game, because that's when the reserve game was going to happen. And the second turn, we had quite a few reserves arrive for the Space Marines. Not exactly what Jeff wanted, because he wanted his reserves to come in after my reserves. Now, he made a big tactical error. The Knight Paladin ended up shooting the War Walker and ended up scattering onto his bikes. That ended up killing the bikes, the unit of bikes. And that really kind of put a damper on his plans from the very beginning. Then my Warp Spiders basically survived unscathed as they just jumped back. And my reserves really came to town. So basically my reserves showed up and I was able to focus fire on a few things, cast some very specific psychic powers like Dominate on the Centurions and kind of knock them out, and then send the Wraith Knight down the far flank. Now, I could have put the Wraith Knight close to the Centurions, but I really didn't want to risk it. I just wanted to, have it later in the game just in case, that big command squad started assaulting stuff. I wanted my Wraith Knight to be in pristine shape. Now, the big command squad came in, almost murdered all the Scourge, but didn't kill everybody. And this game just kind of just quickly and rapidly degenerated for Jeff. Small toughness 5 units against poison, usually having to take a variety of armor saves because of my firepower. That meant that he was just slowly losing key models. And at the end of the game, even with some of the crazy rolling, like Khan failing 3 out of 3 armor saves, really just meant that it was all over but the fat lady singing. But what we want to take away from this battle report is the importance of being able to keep things in reserve and using the reserve manipulation game to come in when you need it. Also, the strength of some of the psychic powers like Dominate. Dominate is a key psychic power, especially in a freak show list that has some sort of negative leadership modifier. If you put it on a Death Star or a big nasty unit, them having to roll a leadership test every time they want to do something can be huge. In this case, it prevented the Centurions from firing because they were out of unit coherency. Now, this really changed the dynamic of the game because I was able to then focus on the Centurions again, and they really didn't do much for the entire game. With Jeff's reserves coming in piecemeal, and me being able to just focus on the units that I need to focus on, and namely keeping my Warp Spiders alive until the very end of the game when the Knight charged into them, really allowed my army to dictate the pace of the game and slowly pick apart a very fast, hard-hitting army. Now, could have Jeff done anything differently? In my opinion, he played the right game. He knew I was going to reserve a lot, so he reserved a lot simply because he wanted to have the chance to come on when my reserves hadn't come on. He was banking on Skari's gaze to keep most of his reserves off the table, waiting for my reserves to come on so he could then do the damage to me. Sadly, he ended up, having most of his reserves come on, and then most of my army did arrive on that second turn. I would have to say my MVP of the match was my Farseer, and because he's on a jet bike and he is awesome. I love the Jetseer. And my Warp Spiders. I only run 1 unit, but they are absolutely fantastic, even with the ITC ruling of only 1 jump per turn in your opponent's shooting phase. And they just murdered bike after bike after bike. So I highly recommend you, using a unit of Warp Spiders if you haven't already got one. Now, towards the end of the game, we're just having some fun. So we ended up running the Knight versus the Wraith Knight and getting them together in epic close combat. I charged through cover, even though the Wraith Knight doesn't have grenades. And the Knight failed to roll any 6s with his chainsword, which then meant that my Wraith Knight's Ghost Glaive just completely chopped up the knight, which kind of reminded me a little bit about the Dawn of War 3 trailer, which I'm very excited about. So let me know down below what you think. Leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe, and share the channel if you like the battle reports. Check out the Patreon page for supporting the channel. Thanks to all my patrons, and stay tuned till next time. We've hit a milestone. Now you can expect a tactical video every week, and you have the patrons to thank for that. Thanks a lot. This is Skari, your grateful host, out.